Well, good noon, everyone, I guess. This is a time when everyone is going to have lunch and hopefully learn a little bit. I want to welcome you to this portion of the Pathways for Hope. My name is Judge Oscar Kazen. Many of you know me because for at least the better part of 20 plus years, I've been the mental health judge that's done the non-criminal side of everything. In fact, as I look around, I see a lot of faces of family members who have been part of this. But I'm excited today because you don't get to hear from me. That was funny. You can laugh. So the people you will hear from are four very talented individuals because we're still talking about that part of this system that deals with criminal law. What happens when somebody's been arrested? What happens when somebody goes to jail? We've got the prosecutor, we've got the inpatient competency restoration, the outpatient competency restoration, and we have the San Antonio State Hospital portion of it. It's that path that our families go through when they've committed a crime, before they even get prosecuted. So with that having been said, I'm supposed to give you a couple of announcements. This one never works. For those of you sitting in the back, please feel free to move to the front. Doesn't work. All right. Secondly, I'm supposed to ask if everyone can put their phones on vibrate. And then lastly, the way we're going to handle questions is if you have something you want to ask and you have a piece of paper, along the way, write it down and just bring it to me or bring it in up here to the right. I am volunteering you to take all the questions. Hand them, she'll hang on to them, and she'll hand them to me so that I can read out your questions for you. If you don't have a piece of paper, I'm going to ask you to come to the microphone at the end. Hopefully we'll have enough time to do everything. All right, so welcome to the portion of, I had it up there. Yeah, it's all right. The judicial path to competency hearings from beginning to end. With that, it's my privilege to introduce some individuals here before we get going so they can introduce themselves to you. First, our district attorney who has risen to the very top of decision making in terms of how we help and divert people through the mental health arena and criminal justice, Sally Uncapher. Sally, if you don't mind introducing yourself and saying a little something.
Good morning. As the judge said, my name is Sally Uncapher. I have been with the DA's office for 17 years. The last 9 of them in mental health. That includes a stint at civil mental health with Judge Kazen's court.
I've been around a long time.
And then many years at the Judge Carruthers court, which is a competency restoration court. So all things that, sorry, we're hearing a lot of echo up here, so it throws off the thought. So all things that relate to severe mental illness such that a person doesn't understand that they're charged with a crime or unable to communicate in a rational, factual manner.
And next in line in this path from the district attorney, and then once we decide that someone doesn't have the capacity to be prosecuted, we have to decide how we're going to get them there. One of the paths is outpatient competency restoration. Ashley, Amesquita, if you don't mind talking a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get a little later on to the programs.
Yes, so as the judge said, my name is Ashley Amesquita. I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm also the court liaison for the Outpatient Competency Restoration Program. And one of the things that I do is I help determine eligibility for outpatient placement, as well as complete the screening and provide those recommendations to the court.
Thank you, Ashley. And then it's Nicole Bermejillo. I've known her for years and years, an outstanding individual. She is now in charge of a jail-based competency restoration. So one more time, so we can guide through this path and down the road. If you cannot be prosecuted because you're not able to understand or incompetent, you can either be restored in the jail, inpatient competency restoration, or outpatient while your charges are pending. This is the outpatient. Nicole, if you don't mind talking a little bit about yourself.
Jail-based.
Jail-based,
Restoration, yes. So as Judge was saying, my name is Nicole Bermejillo. I am also a licensed professional counselor. I am the behavioral health supervisor with our jail-based competency restoration program.
Like Judge was saying, we currently work with individuals who are incarcerated in the Bexar County Jail to help provide them access to services that they could possibly wait a little bit longer for to get to SASH. So we try and help get them access to treatment a little bit quicker. We also, like Sally was saying, improve their rational and factual understanding of the justice system to help them be able to be found restored to competency and resolve their legal charges.
There we go. As we know, many of our loved ones are so ill that we really don't want to see them languish in jail to be restored, or they can't be let out of jail to be restored. They will eventually go to one of the forensics facilities to be restored, such as the San Antonio State Hospital. I'd like to introduce Melissa Bourland. She is the Director of Social Services and Forensic Services at our San Antonio State Hospital. And if you haven't seen the new building, it is beautiful.
Yes, it is. So as Judge said, I'm Melissa Bourland. I am a licensed master social worker. I have been with the state hospital now for about 13 years and currently hold the position for the Director of Social Work as well as all the forensic programs there at SASH. And we work with all of these entities and ladies on very regularly with those who are incompetent and need psychiatric stabilization so they can return back and deal with their criminal charges.
Thank you. All right. So, my loved one's been arrested. What next? You know, I'm going to pass this part to Sally Uncapher because the first one who touches your loved one is going to be the criminal justice system and the prosecution. Sally?
Thank you. So when someone first comes into jail, they have an acknowledgement of mental illness. There is a process called a 1622 where they're assessed, and I believe there's going to be Judge Huff and a team talking about that later on today, so I'm not going to go into that. But what I would encourage you as a family member or an individual yourself with a mental illness, that you speak up, that you, one, when you call the police, that you let them know that your loved one has a mental illness. Two, when the policeman is writing a report, that you make sure that they document the mental illness in the police report. When your loved one is at jail, you can call the excellent staff at the University Hospital Jail. They work really hard to facilitate treatment to individuals who are in jail. And you can email us. We will connect you to the defense attorney that's assigned, or we can help you as well. We're eager to help you and let you know the process going forward. So the main thing after initial arrest is to speak up and share that information.
And Sally, so really in professional terms, we call it the 46B process. What does the 46B process look like, and what are the steps once somebody lands in your lap?
So a person can be severely mentally ill and competent to stand trial. So competency, the question is, per the code, does a person have the sufficient ability to rationally understand the nature of the charges against them? Are they unable to rationally and factually communicate with their attorney? Now, a person is presumed competent to stand trial, but if they don't understand that they're charged with the crime or they're unable to communicate with their attorney, that's when competency is raised. I, as the prosecutor, do not get to talk to your loved one. The defense attorneys do. However, when we receive collateral information from family members, we make sure to pass that information along in an email to the jail, to CHCS that might be working in the jail at the time, to the defense attorney, and we ask, is there a competency issue? Another thing we also do is when a person fails to show up to jail court, my team and I are notified immediately, and we send out an email to the defense attorney and jail mental health asking, is there a possible mental health problem here?
And Sally, so there is a difference between one of our loved ones that's ill, that we know is manic and pressured, and an individual who doesn't stand or have capacity to be prosecuted. Because many of our loved ones think, well, my child is mentally ill, he needs to go down this process. But there's a difference, isn't there?
And again, there is, and it has to do with that rational and factual component, that understanding and ability to communicate. And so when that is raised, a defense attorney can file a motion. University Jail, also notifies the district magistrate court via letter and to the defense and to myself that there might be a competency issue. And when that issue is raised, there is a hearing, and the judge asks the defense attorney, are you able to communicate with your client? Right? Does your client seem to rationally understand what's going on? And if the answers are no, the judge will order a competency evaluation. And a competency evaluation is conducted by either a licensed psychiatrist or psychologist, and they have to meet certain criteria to conduct a competency evaluation. Not all psychiatrists do this, not all psychologists do this. In fact, there are very few. The court system is always looking for more. It's part of the, I would say, challenge in the whole process are finding licensed clinicians that meet this criteria to do these competency evaluations.
So once we get there, and family members should be aware, Sally, if you don't mind just a few seconds on this, that wait to get somebody restored for many years had been up to 6 months. Months before they even got evaluated. The Bexar County's worked very hard to reduce that time so that by the time Sally says we need them evaluated so the judge can make a decision, that time has become less. Is that correct?
That is correct, and we're continuing to work on the processes. We just have a new computer system start up with the county. We're trying to utilize that to help effectuate quicker recognition of individuals with past competency issues.
So once, for example, we find out that our loved one is incompetent, they've gone to the court. The court now needs to decide which of the paths are open to your loved one, either at the beginning of this travel in this journey or the end. So there are 3 paths we get to. One is the outpatient competency restoration, the jail-based competency restoration, and then the state hospital. Those are our 3 distinguished speakers. And at this point, I think it's best for me to turn it over to Ashley, who does our outpatient. What is outpatient?
So our outpatient competency restoration program is a court-ordered program provided by the Center for Healthcare Services, and we focus on 2 things here. We focus on competency restoration, so being able to restore that individual and provide that individual with mental health treatment to manage any symptoms. And some of the benefits of this program is, 1, it's the least restrictive setting to help restore an individual to competency. And that individual is also able to remain at home with family if that is a safe and alternative option. And if family is not available or they do not have a place to go back to, then we do refer these individuals to group homes and residential programs such as rehabilitation facilities or even transitional homes.
And is it fair to say that during this whole time, their charges are still pending, correct?
Yes, during this process, charges are still pending.
So your goal is to get them at least stable enough, the family members, to be able to communicate with their attorneys and be prepared for the process.
Yes, so we do focus on psychiatric treatment. That's a big part of this program. And one of the other things that's very important during this pathway is if the individual is safe enough to reside in the community, and most importantly, is the individual willing to accept that treatment.
So we run into many family members who will say, I want my loved one out. We also run into many family members who will say, I want my loved one out, but it's just not going to work if we do. How do you determine what outpatient competency eligibility is?
So determination is based on several factors. First and foremost, one of the factors is pending charges found incompetent to stand trial, and if that individual can be managed safely in an outpatient setting. So would that individual, if on outpatient placement, would they be a danger to themselves? Would they be a danger to society? And we do that by conducting a screening to determine if this individual may be a low violence. It also is dependent on the type of charge. There are charges that may not be eligible because of the nature of the pending charge.
Okay. So we've determined that somebody can be out. We determined that a family member should be out. And you've determined that this is the best course. How do you order OCR? What now? What happens once that happens?
So once an individual is determined to safely reside out in the community while being restored and psychiatric treatment is in agreement, then a court order does have to allow this individual to be ordered to competency restoration in an outpatient setting. And we do have 7 days to begin that treatment. And while in treatment, that individual is provided with psychiatric treatments, which consist of meeting with a psychiatrist, which prescribes medications to manage those symptoms that may be interfering with competency or may be interfering just in general with that individual.
Okay. So you remember earlier when I was mentioning that sadly there are some families who really want their loved one home, but they recognize that that's just not the reality. It just isn't possible. Who isn't eligible for OCR?
So again, that depends on several factors. The nature of the charge does depend on that, because a judge does ultimately have to agree that this is a safe pathway for this individual and that services can be provided safely out in the community. And another thing that may be difficult is we do work with a lot of individuals, unfortunately, with substance use disorders. And a lot of the times, those individuals may not agree to the treatment plan. They may not want to work on those substance use treatment. They may not be ready to work on those symptoms, or they may not even be willing to meet with a doctor or case manager. So in that sense, agreeing to the treatment plan set out forth, that would make it very difficult to safely provide those services to those individuals.
And when you say safely, I guess this is a point for me to ask. Some people, when you want to get them out and you decide to get them out, part of that decision is, will they actually cooperate? Does anesthesia affect their understanding such that they're just not going to do it, and we would be re-endangering the community? Is that part of what you assess as well?
Correct. We do look at potential violence to the community that maybe this individual may be posing because they're not ready to engage in treatment just yet. Or maybe they are engaging in treatment, but the symptoms are severe to the point where they may be posing a danger to themselves or to others.
So we've gotten to the point where our loved one has gone through the prosecutor's office. They've determined they need to be restored. They've looked at whether or not our loved one can do it on the outside, and we've decided for whatever reason that's just not appropriate. Then we turn down the next road, which is a little bit, and again, more intensive, because it's not on the outside, but it's not an institution. That would be jail-based competency restoration. Nicole, you're the expert on that one.
Thank you, Judge. So if we could, awesome. Okay, so I won't recap everything that Ashley just said, because for a good majority of what we do, it's very similar. The same psychiatric treatment, the same engagement in services that we have to do, the court process, pretty much exactly the same for jail-based competency restoration, except we're looking at that additional risk. Maybe they need that extra support. Maybe they've previously been out on bond and needed to come back to jail. So we provide them those services here in the jail. We actually work with the individuals. We pull them out of their units where they're staying. We provide group services as well as individual services. So one of the main things that we're looking at in JBCR is trying to get the individual stabilized. They have access to psychiatric treatment with our provider, in addition to detention healthcare services, which works on with their mental health as well before they're brought into the program. We work with them. We have 2 groups every day. It's about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And one of the main components of jail-based competency restoration to help improve engagement is to be creative with our interventions. So we are providing these services in a jail. So one of the main things that we're looking at is, can these individuals be together? Are they able to interact with other participants in a group setting? Are they able to comprehend the information that we're giving them, so that way they can hopefully be restored to competency, get that evaluation like Sally was speaking about earlier. Next slide.
All right, good. I want to make sure that
Sorry, I did
this
not print out my
one's this subject is terribly important to me, because years and years and years ago, the law did not allow for an individual who is waiting for a bed at SASH to be medicated at a jail or treated at the jail. We had individuals who were locked up for months and months at a time without the benefit of any medication. And we got together with Senator Menendez. In fact, I still have the original draft that I put together that changed that law, that said if someone's waiting in a jail for a bed, they shouldn't also have to suffer, that our loved ones can receive treatment while they're waiting. So that's why what Nicole does for me, when I look back 10 or 15 years ago, is just so terribly important. And this is the part where it's about you. It only happened because the community and NAMI got together to make it happen. So you make a difference when you attend and when you're part of what we do here today. All right, so next is, let's assume that they're on jail-based competency restoration. What are the benefits?
So like Judge Kazen was saying, this is a rather new initiative. I want to say Texas right now has between 6 to 8 jail-based competency restoration programs. It's an expanding opportunity for mental health services to increase access to the jail, to services in the jail. We're pretty much mirroring as much as we can the same services that are provided in an inpatient setting. But again, one of the things that we're seeing is there's just an influx of people right now where we need all the help we can get. That's why we all work together to try and give access to these services. And a big benefit is we work together to try and help make sure that the participants are in the most appropriate clinical setting. If someone is a lower risk, has maybe family support in the community, they would be more appropriate for outpatient. If someone maybe has a little bit more of an aggravated offense, or excuse me, again, maybe does not comprehend the requirements of bond and then was brought back to jail, we work with those individuals, provide them that intensive support, so that way once they've been restored to competency, they've been connected with resources in the community to maybe then be eligible for bond and be successful in the community while they await the resolution of their legal charges.
And Nicole, so we've got them to you. We know what jail-based competency can do. Instead of having our loved ones languish in jail, waiting to be prosecuted. What are the eligibilities to get on jail-based competency restoration, besides just not being eligible to get out?
So definitely some individuals, like I said, are not eligible for release. As far as eligibility within the jail, they do need to have a mental health diagnosis. And they also need to be motivated to engage in some kind of treatment. Sometimes the symptoms that these individuals are experiencing do not allow them to even have conversation, which would inhibit their ability to interact safely in a group setting, because my staff is all female and we don't have officers in the room with us. We try to create a therapeutic environment. So we want to make sure that they understand, you have to raise your hand, you have to take turns, you have to be respectful of other people, and we really try and empower them to be motivated and participate, because it's an opportunity to provide them autonomy in a situation where they have little to no control over what's going on. So I definitely try and sell it in that way so that they want to be motivated to participate. We get them quicker access to care. There are thousands of individuals in the Bexar County Jail. Again, we need all the help we can get.
So the next slide I'm afraid to ask, because I've been working with you for so long. What are the challenges to jail-based competency restoration? Do not say the judge.
Oh no, never the judges, never. So it's actually not necessarily, it's a challenge because again, we're working with so many different systems and community partners. Ultimately, we are in a locked down, secured facility. So there are some rules that as much as I ask, I can't get what I want all the time. I have to be flexible. I had to find bendable crayons so my participants could color and have an opportunity to have fun while they're in group and participating. So again, we are in a secured facility. We do have individuals who are housed in the jail based on certain things like their classifications, which can limit their ability to be able to participate just due to the resources that we have available with my tiny but mighty team. So,
So we've gotten them to the point that we understand our loved one needs help. We understand they've been prosecuted. We understand that something is amiss and we need to prepare them so that they can defend themselves in court, understand what's happening, be treated humanely. The prosecutor has decided that they're going to bring that to the judge's attention and has decided to take another path. That path we now know can either be on the outside or on the inside. But what happens at the very end of that path when we have to send somebody to an institution? To that, I hand it off to you.
So, as
Actually,
many of you
let me
know,
say Melissa.
so San Antonio State Hospital, most of y'all know who we are and what we do. We have been around longer than the other two programs, especially jail-based, which is very new. And we are historically the path to competency. The only way to get competency restoration was within a state hospital setting. The long wait list, which if you've ever had a loved one on that wait list, you know can be extremely long. For our type of facility, we've gotten as high as 13, 14 months, and that is from the time they've already been determined incompetent and that they need competency restoration services. If they have a charge that's on the MSU list or the max security and have to go to that type of facility, it can be 2 years plus, and that is probably now it's around 2 years, but it got up to close to 3. And again, from the time they were found incompetent, sorry. Luckily, we do have resources like OCR, which have been around for quite a while, but a lot of individuals do not qualify for that. The nature of their illness makes it hard for them to maintain in treatment, take their medications. And so up until now, or recently, we now have jail-based. I know many families, loved ones are very concerned that we are just trying to not service them in the state hospital because there's a list and get them serviced in the jail, and we're just going to push them through, say they're competent, without treatment. That is a huge falsality. That the jail-based, they offered tons of psychiatric services. We worked with the jail-based program for over a year prior to it even being initiated in what we do, how our services look, what other counties that have a jail-based OCR and OCR program, what those look like. And so their program is mirrored very much after ours. The fact that they have fewer individuals within those services probably means they're able to even spend more time in therapeutic services than we are at SASH, because as most of you know, we do not just focus on those that are incompetent. We also have people from the civil side and those that have already been adjudicated as not guilty by reason of insanity.
And that's a good point to make for the family members that are here. The San Antonio State Hospital, located in the middle of San Antonio for many years, was the hospital that we used and abused in Bexar County. So we would send them a considerable amount of our family members who were ill but had not committed a crime. Those doors are closed to us. And it isn't because they wanted to close those doors to us. It's because, and even though they do have some civil individuals there, it's because they are a state facility located in San Antonio, hence the San Antonio State Hospital. They're not San Antonio's hospital. One day you're going to hear me in the future yell at the top of my lungs, we need to build a county psychiatric facility, period. Well, what's happened, you're all coming to my next barbecue. Well, what's happened in this little period, as I segue back to the San Antonio State Hospital, is that the San Antonio State Hospital, actually the system, was sued by disability rights. They said it's ridiculous that somebody pending a criminal charge should sit in jail years before they get treatment, if at all. And they won. So the state of Texas responded by building more facilities to attend to that need. And they do a marvelous job. That's where Melissa comes in. What's happened, though, when you squeeze a balloon at one end, it bulges at the other. Our civil capacity is mostly gone. So when you get somebody there at the state hospital, it's important, I think, for people to know, although they're receiving treatment, is it fair to say that treatment is not the primary focus, restoration is with considerable treatment? How would you explain that?
I would say, because first I am a clinician who actually started at the hospital to provide psychiatric treatment. But it is actually more the commitment from the judge that's going to dictate where our priority is. If they come in civilly, there's no criminal charges, no pending legal issues. It is treatment. Again, it's what the court order says, that is, patient is in imminent danger to self or others. So those stays are usually fairly short. If it is that they have pending charges and they are incompetent to stand trial, then there is a duality there that we have a right to due process of the law that we need to uphold and get them competent. But also all of us that went into this field are here to treat them. So we struggle with that. So one of the things we've done at SASH is we've tried to separate that out and have a primary treatment team with the doctor, psychologist, a social worker, and everything that works on treatment and aftercare and follow-up and resources and support. And then we have a primary team that focuses on the forensic piece, that competency restoration, and provides that education, that collaboration with all of these entities up here with me, as well as many others, the defense attorneys, the families, and everyone.
And I want to compliment you, because before we ever got up here, one of the things Melissa told me is, I know we're there as part of the court system to get people ready to be prosecuted, but for me, it's about the person. It's about the treatment, and it's about the family. And I just want to thank you for that. I just think it's a marvelous part of our system that we still have that in the servant's heart. Judge Huff and I have been doing this for a long time, and we are both on the state commission, commissioners on the State Commission for Mental Health, and the Supreme Court Commission. And do you know by chance, I don't have the updated numbers, so that they get an understanding of how we don't have the resources in Texas? How many people are currently waiting in a jail and awaiting a bed at a state hospital? If you know.
Right around 1,800.
1,800 of our family members are sitting in a jail somewhere because Texas has not built sufficient capacity to get them to a forensics unit. And then on top of that, whatever little is left is for the rest of our families who haven't been arrested. Imagine that. It is time that we speak as one voice as against that. All right. So, what are the pathways? I mean, so let's assume that we've got somebody restored. Sally, here's where it comes back to you, because now they hand it, the football, back to Sally.
Can I piggyback?
Opine as much as you
Passion.
want.
When I started this job, the wait time to get to SASH was 3 weeks. It's now 9 months. During the height of COVID, if you murdered somebody and you were incompetent, it was taking about almost 3 years to get you to a maximum security bed. They have opened maximum security beds throughout the state. I believe SASH is going to be a max security bed, which we desperately need. 40 beds. The current wait time for a max bed is running approximately 18 months.
Think about
We
that.
see misdemeanors that have been, I have a passionate prosecutor team over there, and I'm thinking of, they're incredible, but one is very passionate about an individual that once spent 14 years at the state hospital, and upon his release continues to cycle in and out of the community. He continues to assault people out in our community. And I feel like the state of Texas would just say, well, those are misdemeanors. They don't need state hospital stays. But the hospital systems cannot meet his needs. He needs supervision. He needs more structure. He needs help. And we are struggling to get him there. One of the things that I could talk about is that we can modify at any point these individuals. So my team, when somebody is in the jail and they've been ordered inpatient, we ask defense attorneys, we ask jail mental health, we ask if we get information from family members. Is your loved one currently taking the medication in the jail? Let us know. And we send emails and we throw everybody in. We throw SASH, we throw JBCR, we throw OCR in, and we try to find, we ask for a rescreening. We'll even include SASH to see if we can modify someone from that wait for a maximum security bed. We'll ask, will you review? We'll send it to the state forensics admissions board and say, will you review this and see if this person can be switched over to the SASH beds? So we don't just stop. My team sends hundreds of emails a week. We receive hundreds of emails a week besides being in court, besides being in felony mental health court, as well as Judge Carruthers' court. We are constantly working to find the most appropriate placement. I often call us prosecutors / defense attorneys / social workers. And I was forced to do that. I was by myself when COVID hit as a prosecutor, and I knew that we couldn't keep all these people in the jail. And we had to find alternatives. But it is a struggle. And when Judge talked about the need for civil beds and squeezing one in, that's totally true, and we see it. Because we would love to ED people, or we do ED people from the jail, and they will come back in 24 hours.
And I think this is a good time to point out for family members that we need to point out to everyone else that even though we are fighting and struggling and doing everything we can to treat our loved ones who are charged with a crime humanely, get them through the system quickly, we shouldn't ever forget the vast majority of our loved ones with mental illness will never see the inside of a jail, will never be arrested, and are not criminals. We just can't allow that to overlap. The vast majority of our individuals with serious mental illness or with mental illness are the ones that need the civil treatment. More about that at a later hearing.
So in our effort to stop them from re-entering the jail, we use the court systems. We use Judge Runhell and Judge Huff's court as much as possible. We have communications with the SASH treatment team when somebody is restored to competency, and we try to develop a pathway forward as quick as possible before they even hit the jail. So we'll reach out to the defense attorney and say, please consider applying for a felony mental health court. And our hope is, and we've seen some great success for those that are coming out of SASH and have this intensive treatment team behind them so that they don't reoffend and they stay strong. So I've seen people with countless amounts of theft and criminal mischief cases to the point that it's felonies, to the point that I'm getting calls from family members in California saying, please help my loved one. Don't release them. Get them into the hospital and get them help, and we get them to Judge Runhell's court after they've restored to competency. They have that stability and that treatment team behind them, holding them accountable, staying on their meds, and then they do very well and their case is dismissed. We've had a number of those, and that's our goal. I mean, obviously there's some it doesn't apply for everybody, but each individual is treated on their own case and their own needs. So that's kind of that last slide. Our goal is to have a plan in place. That's our main goal.
So you've talked about the pathways, and in this particular side, the possible pathways, one is restored. But they all have the same goal, don't they, Sally?
The goal is to
That's what your slide says.
Yes. The goal is to keep them, the individual safe, the community safe, and the family safe.
All right. So, it's a good point now to also make a little bit of a distinction when we talk about these pathways. In the court system, in the last 10 or so years, 15 years, we've developed the specialty courts, and they have had a huge impact in how we treat individuals on the spectrum of issues from prostitution to mental health, drug addiction, but it all relates to some crime having been committed. we also have the pathway through the civil courts, which is the rest of our loved ones. So we've been doing that for 40 years. But it really didn't make sense until you brought together what we now have, which is this old system that I've been part of forever and a day. And Judge Huff and her specialty court saying, well, hang on a second. We are more than black robes, and we are more than gavels. We can make a difference in this system. And then you bring the prosecutor in. And then you bring the provider, the Center for Healthcare Services. And then you touch the very system that we're going to send them to. So what you see is this length of pathway. And you see a difference in that what we're trying to do, sometimes we don't succeed. We're trying to make a difference in the lives of the people who were touched by mental illness, and a difference in the lives of the family members. Because when mental illness strikes in this regard, the criminal side, it is a hand grenade whose shrapnel touches every single aspect of everyone around. And to the extent the system isn't another part of that injury, we're trying, we'll talk to Judge Huff about this as well, we're trying to make all our systems better for you. So at this point, what I'd like to do is I'll go back down the table. I'm going to say, Sally, if you had any one observation or any one point of discussion, your hope, your dream, your complaint, anything to talk about with regards to your part of this, what would it be?
More state hospital beds? I mean, that's...
I'm already inviting them to a barbecue.
That's the reality. I mean, I'm absolutely pro intensive outpatient treatment. But, okay, I have a daughter. She has asthma. She's 9. She knows if she doesn't take her asthma treatment, she's going to end up back in the hospital for 4 or 5 days like she has in the past. Last week, start of school, coming down the stairs. Did you take your breathing treatment this morning? Yes. Next day. Did you take your breathing treatment? Yes. Did you take your breathing? Yes. Thursday, call from school. Come pick your kid up. She's running a fever. Take her to the doctor. Take her to the doctor. Doctor listens to her lungs, looks at her and says, "Are you doing your daily inhaler?" She looks at me and says, "I don't know where my mom put it."
Wow.
This morning when I was getting ready and thinking about what I was going to say, that story just kept ringing in my head, because how many times do I talk to parents who are doing all they can, but their loved one doesn't recognize that they have a mental illness, or they haven't gotten the right meds prescribed, because I know that you can't just give one med to one person and it's going to fix it, right? It's something that's going to have to be worked on. And yet we're expecting these individuals to take their meds, and they don't recognize, or they're just like my daughter, they don't want to be dependent. My 9-year-old doesn't want to be dependent on this, right? There are just going to be individuals that are going to need the extensive inpatient treatment. There just are. And as the population grows, and as the trauma of childhood continues, it just seems like there's such a difference, right, Judge?
There is.
From 9 years ago?
Yeah.
It just feels so different.
And overwhelming.
Overwhelming. It is overwhelming. It's overwhelming. The numbers are overwhelming. My job wasn't hard 9 years ago. People were incompetent. They went to the state hospital, or they went on outpatient. They came back restored. They went forward with probation. They got on MIC. They got their mental health treatment. It seemed like it worked. So you ask me, what do I dream of? Every day I drive home on 281 and I see the lotto sign. I say, it's not big enough, but when it hits $1 billion, I'm going to get a ticket, and I'm going to work with these ladies, those ladies, and these ladies, and this fine gentleman, and use the money for good. But that's what I wish. I know that the legislative push is for more outpatient treatment. I know that, but I wish for more inpatient beds, and that includes civil beds, Judge.
I do too. I wish we could get that through to our county individuals We need, by the way, did I say we need a county psychiatric facility? Ashley, I'm going to ask you, because I mean, you touch lives and you've seen the successes on the outside. What, if you could share anything, if you could say anything about what you do, what would that be?
So I would say for a lot of individual, the situation is not an ideal situation, right? You're in jail, you're pending charges, and you have all the stressors of all your legal obligations going on. But for a lot of these individuals, the first stepping stones to treatment is unfortunately being court ordered to treatment. And during their treatment with the center, we do meet with them twice a week, which is pretty intense if you think about it, right? Twice a week, meeting with a case manager, meeting with a doctor, having these services provided to you, and we're able to build that rapport, and we're able to reduce the stigma, and we're able to help these individuals identify, well, if I take my medications, maybe I won't, go out of jail. For a lot of individuals, the fear of going back to the jail is enough to keep them engaged in services.
And for some, it's not. And that's where I turn to Nicole and say, if you had an observation, if you had a thought, anything relating to this, if you have a feeling or a dream, what would that be?
Well, similar to Sally, I would love to win the lotto and be able to just provide as much treatment as physically possible to all the individuals. Because again, this conference in and of itself, there's so many organizations and there's still so many people that need our help. So my hope is honestly just the continued collaboration between the county, between the center, between detention healthcare services to continue these much needed services, to continue to expand access to mental health care in the jail. There are a lot of individuals that I see regularly in the jail that are like, oh yeah, you do mental health? They're not in my programs, but they're like, oh yeah, I have that, but I don't go do anything when I get out. I don't want to do that. I'm like, why? I literally have a resource wall in my office. I just get random inmates that are like, hey miss, can I take that? I'm like, absolutely you can. Go to see outpatient. Let's get you connected with services. Are you with jail mental health services already? Again, to just expand that access, continue to promote wellness with our loved ones, incarcerated or not, to again help expand that access to care, have financial means to do so, and continued collaboration with all of our amazing partners.
Wow. Melissa, when I turn everything over to the San Antonio State Hospital, they are like the wise old owl at the top of the oak tree because they've been around for 150 years. In fact, most people don't know this, but the San Antonio area, when you go out there, there's a lot of open acreage that used to be covered with housing and old military-style buildings and doctors who lived out there and nurses who were there 24/7. We are down to what we are now. Well, we're going to work on that, right? But of all of us here, you have that wise owl perspective. What do you think?
Well, in short of a magic cure for mental illness as a whole, which we know is not coming anytime soon, I think there's a lot there that I wish for. Some of what all of these ladies said, and yes, there's definitely a need for more beds within the system. That's where programs such as jail-based and OCR come in. Those that are able to get treatment in those levels of care, should, and then that opens up more beds, very limited number of beds that we have within the state for those that need that true psychiatric inpatient level of care. I think my biggest hope is if we take into account the way our laws are written and everything, there is no more extended stay in a psychiatric facility. The law doesn't make room for it. It is imminent danger. That means immediate right now. And as we know, the nature of mental illness, it doesn't allow us, much like Sally and Sally's daughter, to say, if I don't take my meds, I end up in the hospital. The illness itself plays tricks on us. It tells us that the meds are bad. It tells us we don't need them. There's side effects. Sally is able to tell her daughter, take your meds. When my son was diagnosed with cancer, he was 5. We could hold him down and give him his treatments. If an adult is diagnosed with anything, they get to decide whether they want that treatment or not. And I think my biggest hope is that all the families and loved ones in the room somehow work to find peace, that we can scream and yell at our adult children or our loved ones, our spouses, our brothers, our sisters. Take your meds, take your meds, take your meds. We see it plain as day. You know, you need to be in treatment, you need to be in services. It's ultimately their choice. And that's probably the hardest thing for loved ones to deal with, because they see the train wreck coming. They know they're ending up back in jail. They know if they don't take their meds, they're going to end up back on the street and homeless. They're going to end up in the hospital. They're just going to get released. They're going to end up, the charges getting more significant. And so my biggest hope is, as a community and as a whole, that the families, loved ones find peace with it. You do what you do. You support them as much as you can, and you be there when they fall. But also you can't force them into the treatment, which is the hardest thing.
Wow, please. And I promise you, we still have a few minutes for questions. So.
That was beautiful. And I don't want to use the word but. There is compelled meds in the state hospital, and I've just seen too many and talked to too many family members that loved ones get to the state hospital and a compelled medication request is made by the doctor, and that changes everything while they're there. But that's where the follow-up comes from. That's where the communication comes from. That's where, we try to give all the collateral forward. But I've seen too many people go to the state hospital aggressive towards family members, get on compelled meds, stay at the hospital, stabilize because of the amazing treatment. They do get there. They get that treatment there. And come back and get onto Judge Renhell's program and succeed. Or even go into probation and succeed. So, the compelled meds are a key component to pulling someone out of their psychosis.
Or? Right, and that medication really does make a difference in making sure people stay on their medication. But at the same time, it's a balance. We, as loved ones, say, take your meds. We're not the ones who have to suffer with the side effects, right? So it needs to be a collaborative discussion. But in the end, sometimes you just need to take your meds, right? But that only comes with an understanding and an awakening of why and what impact it has on you. We also have, for example, an entire outpatient side where we've created a program, and we'll talk about it in another session, called the Outpatient Treatment Program, AOT, Assisted Outpatient Treatment. Doesn't require that you be in a criminal case. They get sentenced, or not sentenced, ordered to appear before a team and a judge while they're still and before they're ever arrested to make sure they take their meds. So we're developing this spectrum of pathways. Almost ironic that we're in the pathways to hope, right? Okay. The question I got from one individual is, my son has been sentenced for a felony and a misdemeanor. The sentence is 3.5 years, criminal and mental health probation. How do I get him to San Antonio to complete his sentence here? I'm going to toss that one over to you, Melissa. To be honest with you, most of this is handled at the state level and with the department. But so they're somewhere else for restoration. How do you get him here? Go, if you can answer it. No, he's already
sentenced.
When he was he sentenced to prison or to restoration? Or to restoration?
You mean, so he hasn't pled. So he wasn't sentenced. He was ordered to restoration. Oh, he's pled guilty. Okay. So he can't get to the state hospital unless while on probation, he has a motion to revoke his probation. So if he doesn't follow probation, if an individual doesn't follow the terms of the probation, then the probation officer will file with the judge a motion to revoke his probation. If the defense attorney believes that that individual may be incompetent, lacks capacity to understand what's going on, he requests an evaluation through magistrate court, and then a doctor would have to determine that they are incompetent to stand trial. And the one thing we didn't mention is the doctors in their evaluations make the recommendation of inpatient or outpatient, and then OCR reviews it too if we think that it's an outpatient appropriate case. But so the doctor would have to recommend inpatient, and then he would wait on the list. So I guess what I would say is try to keep a open line communication with his probation officer. Okay, so if you're seeing something that probation is not seeing, let them know. Also, if there's ever an emergency detention, don't assume probation is going to know. Make sure probation knows.
Make sure the system can respond. The next question is, once restored, alternative placement can be recommended and the case dismissed. So what happens if we are successful in dismissing a case? What are some of the alternative placements? I'm going to take a little bit of this part. That's when they come to me. All right? So if there's no longer a criminal charge, it can be referred on a voluntary basis to the Center for Healthcare Services, to the providers who can continue the continuum of care to be sure your loved one is getting their medication and their assessments and their treatments. Or if your loved one is an individual with a pattern of the minute we're not watching, that loved one will be right back, they can be sent over to the non-criminal court where we contemplate a court order that says, we're not putting you in an inpatient hospital, but we are going to require that you continue your treatment under the supervision of a civil court. That's an outpatient treatment, assisted outpatient treatment. We've got our team here, and we'll talk about that. But today's conversation is mostly about what happens if they still have charges, what happens if the charges haven't been dismissed. But I will tell you, Sally's done a great job through the years of picking up the phone and going, I really don't think we should prosecute this one. Where can we send him? She really does deserve credit for that.
I don't talk that softly, though.
No, usually she's on the phone going, get him there. The next question we got is, do you think these issues that are touching us only occur in Texas? Let me answer that with absolutely not. This is everywhere. I lecture across the country, and it doesn't matter where I go. I've lectured in Congress. I've for years, I've flown all over the place talking about these issues. They are universal. Let me tell you why I think that's the case in the few seconds we have for this question. When we grew up, and Uncle Bill had an issue, and I walked in, or somebody would walk into the room, and they were talking about Uncle Bill, everybody whispered. Everybody whispered. Man, I could get my grandmother to pull out a bottle of gallstones. Wow, look at this sucker. They would talk about their livers. They would talk about their kidneys. They would talk about their arthritis. But Uncle Bill, they whispered. And as a result, through the years, the need to help our loved ones who were ill and needed help became something we didn't want to acknowledge publicly, something we didn't want to touch openly. And we have suffered that effect across this country. But now, and this is the reason I'm going to wrap up on this, this is the reason we decided to set it up this way. But now, we're yelling at the top of our lungs. We are filling auditoriums. We are yelling that now is the time to do something about this. We are as important as any other issue. Period. And if I asked myself what my one dream would be, we set it up this way because I wanted you to see what's happening. And if you had asked me 10 years ago whether there would be a room full of service workers, court personnel, and systems operators saying the patient is most important, helping is most important, diverting is most important, you would have laughed at me. Now they're here. Now they're becoming more. And if you asked me my dream, I want this to be the norm, not the exception. Doing this on Pathways for Hope gets us there. On behalf of the group, we want to applaud you for everything you do. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.